All right, welcome to the Speak Your Piece podcast. My name is Ian McNaughton. This is episode 99 of the Speak Your Piece podcast. We can call this either the Wayne Gretzky episode, but since we're doing a Formula One podcast, this is the Antonio Giovinazzi podcast. Pleased to be joined by my two favorite Formula One friends, Justin Yip, Patrick Deane. Boys, what's going on? What's happening?
Well, I'm glad I'm your favorite, but I might like pretty much your only.
Yeah, you guys are my go-to for like Formula One content. Like we basically I don't know about you guys if you guys are sending memes on a daily, but like pretty regularly we send Formula One memes.
I'm just sending you memes every day.
Yeah,
that I find on Facebook.
Pretty much Facebook or Reddit.
Just Facebook.
Some of the Reddit ones are good. Patrick, what's going on, big guy? What's new with you, Patrick?
Nothing really with me. I'm just getting ready for F1 to come back, to be honest.
So we are doing this podcast was the 19th. So not this weekend, but the weekend after is when the Belgian Grand Prix is in Spa, which is probably one of my favorite tracks. I love Spa. It's so cool. So fun.
Spa's crazy. I love Spa.
I guess we should start off, since we're doing a Formula One podcast, we should start off with the Japanese Grand Prix being canceled for the second year in a row, which sucks. I also like Japanese Grand Prix. Were you guys surprised by this, considering that Japan just had the Olympics recently and now they can't host an F1 race? Justin, were you surprised at this?
I didn't think it would get canceled just because of exactly that, the Olympics. I thought it would go through. I wasn't even worried about it being canceled. I was more worried about probably other tracks getting canceled, if anything. But yeah, and I think a lot of the teams the drivers are pretty heartbroken about it too, because everyone loves Japan, especially having Red Bull and Honda together. They're probably really looking forward to that as well. So I think everyone's pretty disappointed and pretty shocked that it happened.
Patrick, I'm sure you were a bit caught off guard by the news of the cancellation of the Japanese Grand Prix.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting it at all, man. Especially with having Yuki this year and then Honda's last official full year. I thought they'd go hard with Japan this year, especially after the Olympics. I didn't think it would be canceled.
It's funny how many I was not expecting the kind of outpouring that the drivers had. I think Carlos Sainz posted it on his Instagram story. Lando posted about it. Yuki obviously posted about it. George Russell probably posted about it. So
about it too.
Pardon me?
I saw Gasly post about it.
Gasly posted about it too. Yeah.
I might even post about it later. I don't know.
So, anyways, let's recap the season so far. I guess we should start with driver standings and constructor standings, where Mercedes is back in front, baby. I'm going to pull it up right here. Lewis Hamilton has 195 points. Max Verstappen, 187 points. Lando Norris, third place with 113 points. Those are your top three in the driver standings. Constructors, Mercedes has 303. Red Bull has 291. Ferrari has 163, as well as McLaren. So we're tied with the top three. Are you guys surprised at those results right now? Is there a surprising figure that maybe not at the top, but is there another surprising team further down or driver further down?
Yeah, I don't think it's necessarily as surprising at the top, just because it was pretty close between Mercedes and Red Bull. So, it was what Toto said, they were one DNF away from passing them, and he was right, pretty much. And so, at the bottom, I'm pretty surprised that I'm looking at it on the side here.
Yes,
Pretty surprised that Williams, is in the points, double digits. Just so everyone knows, double-digit points. That's pretty impressive in my opinion. So I'm shocked about that.
Well, this is the same guy, Patrick. You know what I'm talking about. This is the same guy who said that Antonio Giovinazzi is going to be a future champion with Ferrari here. That's Justin's words. So
that quote,
yeah, I remember that too. So I'm surprised. I'm surprised that you're already giving up on your boy Giovinazzi and Alfa Romeo, so you can fanboy for Williams.
especially on his dedicated podcast.
I know, on the 99 episode for Antonio Giovinazzi, and he's already, switching lanes. He's already changing loyalties.
That's it. I mean, I've got George Russell in a Mercedes
Oh my God.
as my background. This wasn't planned, by the way. This has been like this. Patrick knows this has been like this for like almost a month now.
Yeah, I forgot you had it though.
I am a sole believer in George Russell.
Patrick, do you have any surprising drivers or constructors results at the moment?
Well, I said this in our last podcast, but Lando Norris, I didn't expect him to do as well as he's doing this year. Like he's up there with Valtteri, which I think is crazy, to be honest.
I'll be honest. As someone who's played Danny Rick quite a number of times in fantasy this year, I was hoping that he'd be higher. I mean, in your first year with McLaren, that's not the worst result to be ninth, especially with the rise of Ferrari, which I guess is another kind of surprising thing. I thought Ferrari would be good. I didn't think they'd be this good this year, but you'd love to see it. I like to see it. I guess I'm a bit of a Ferrari fan, so it worked for me.
I feel like as a team, like they're doing really well. Like maybe not necessarily like the drivers are doing like super crazy well, but like I think they've just like accumulated so many points because they've been like pretty consistent getting like within the top 10, closer to like 4 and 5 most races, or like for like quite a few races.
They've been finishing in top 5, I think, for the most part. Like it's either
one of them is.
Perez is finishing in the top 5, Lando, Valtteri, Max Lewis, and then sometimes Charles can sneak into the top 5, maybe Carlos. But
yeah,
I think it's fun to see a Ferrari team actually not be shit like they were last year.
Yeah.
We'll talk a little bit. What's your guys' favorite race so far this season? Do you guys have a favorite race that you're like, I really enjoyed that one?
Hungary.
I think, Patrick, I know what your least favorite race is.
Take a guess.
Is it the British Grand Prix?
It has to be, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I talked to you about it a lot.
Yeah, we have chatted about that quite a bit. I'm trying to think. I think Imola was my favorite race. I think that was probably the highlight. I don't know if it's the highlight of the season, but it's certainly one of my favorite races of the year. Justin, do you have a favorite race in the 2021 season so far?
I like the last race actually, just because. Putting aside like the George Russell like fanboy, like him getting points, I thought it was just really surprising, and like it kind of showed that like things had changed so quickly, and like it was pretty much like a super unexpected like outcome. So
yeah, I'm with Justin, like thinking to the future, like Hungary's the one I'm going to be going back and watching over and over.
Yeah, that's probably fair. I mean, the first lap was obviously insane. The fact that Valtteri just he late break, then locked up. Lando start. I remember watching that live, and you're seeing Lando start, and you're like, oh my god, and then it's just like, nope, this is all for nothing.
Yeah.
And then Lewis kind of blowing the lead by not changing his tires off after the red flag.
Mm-hmm.
That
bold
was
move.
Bold strategy, Con. Let's see how this plays out, and it did not play out well for him. But shout out Esteban Ocon getting a win.
Big win for him.
Just like we all suspected. Just like we all thought he would.
You bet on that one, right?
Obviously. We obviously put money on Esteban to win.
Of course.
Apparently, he's one of like the nicest guys though in all of like the Formula One. Apparently, like he's like one of the most upbeat, positive, happy-go-lucky people in Formula One.
Up
So
there
that's cool.
Up there with Danny Rick, or
I think so. Well, people usually talk about like Vettel and Ricardo as like two of those like positive, upbeat people, and apparently Ocon's up there too. So good for him.
He deserves it.
He deserves it. So we'll go through this next section quickly. We're going to review each team's season in a nutshell so far. Okay. So we're going to go through all 10 teams. We can probably go through the last couple of teams pretty quickly. We don't need to talk a lot about Haas or Alfa Romeo, but let's start with the leading team. We'll go by constructor. So Mercedes this season, what would you guys grade Mercedes season? Like, is this a B+ for them? Because They're
I was
not
gonna
as far
say
as
B plus.
B plus.
I'd give him like a B, but that's just because of like what they've actually done. Like they've been pretty lucky, and I
Mhm.
think that's why they look better than they actually are. Because I think you guys have already seen that like Lewis has done like significantly less points than he did last year at this
Yeah.
time. But he's still first, I think, and so I think he's just really lucky that like
Mhm.
that crash happened, and then he was able to take so many points away from Max and all that. And there was another race, I forgot which one, where he was able to come from last as well and pass Max and take
Mhm.
even more points away.
Wasn't that Imola too, where he just basically rose up the grid pretty like he
Yeah, I think
I don't know if he went from
Yeah,
last, but he definitely went from like way far down and got into the points.
Yeah, because he lost that front wing there, right?
Yeah, he got bumped by Max. They don't talk about that,
Mhm.
no. But they no, so it's like it's a high B from you, Justin, and it's a B plus from you, Patrick.
Yeah.
Because I think they've had a good season. I mean, Lewis, there's always going to be the debate about if it's luck or skill with him. Because I think he is a skilled driver. You don't just come from last to second accidentally. But then there is some luck in Sebastian Vettel getting a DQ. So you're kind of taking
like
both.
their car isn't like exactly like the best like
It's certainly not as good as it has
overtaking,
been in year past.
especially when it's in the back of like the pack.
Yeah.
It doesn't do too hot. Like it's really good for being like first, like Mercedes always has been. So I think considering that, Lewis does a really good job. And I think that's a really hard job that he has, is to like go like to come through the whole pack and overtake in such like hard situations.
I want to discuss Valtteri's contract a little bit more, but I think he's done as a driver, which is probably not great for Mercedes, but as a driver, he's kind of been this season.
He's kind of been more average than usual lately, just in the last couple of races.
Mhm.
But honestly,
I feel like Mercedes like is not like ignoring the fact that like Valtteri's a really good like complement and like doesn't really cause like serious problems. It's not like Max and Dan Ricardo like situation.
Sure.
He's able he's like pretty calm in most situations and doesn't like like cause a lot of problems for Lewis, and Lewis is able to like succeed so much probably because of Valtteri. And I think they're worried that like it could be like a Rosberg and Lewis situation like in the future if they were to bring someone else in. Hopefully George.
We'll discuss that later on. Red Bull Racing. Is this also a B plus, or is this maybe an A minus for Red Bull?
I was gonna give them a B.
B? Okay.
I'd give him a B plus, almost A minus. I agree with like your initial grading.
I think they're pretty close. I think for whatever you're giving Mercedes, they either should be at the same level, maybe a little bit behind. Like I'm not opposed to a B with Red Bull, but it's weird.
Red Bull, a lot of the time it isn't their fault or that they just draw the short straw, but they just haven't been able to capitalize on places where they should be. Like they should be above Mercedes right now. If you look back at the races.
Yeah. I think it's a lot of like out of hand things that like Red Bull is like facing, and they've been a bit more unlucky compared to Mercedes. But at the same time, I feel like there's more like things they have done, like even like kind of strategy wise, that like they probably could have like capitalized on a bit more and done a bit better, and probably could have put them in like a slightly better position that like they'd be ahead right now going into the break.
Because you got to think there was a point when they had like the clear better car.
In France, they had the better car.
Yeah.
And now it seems Mercedes has almost closed that gap to a degree. So
that was I think those were why the upgrades at Silverstone were so key. Like that's I don't want to say that's been the biggest difference, but it certainly has to be mentioned when you talk about this season and just like the kind of the momentum swing a little bit going over from Red Bull to Mercedes.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts on Red Bull? I really like Sergio Perez and what he's done with Red Bull this season.
I'm hoping they keep him for next year. I think he's really good with Max.
I think he makes sense, honestly. Like I didn't think he did at first, but he's actually like, and like he's been a little bit inconsistent, but I mean, I know it's a very difficult car to drive. So and like being Max's teammate is probably not easy. But I think just because he's been around so long that like he like understands like first driver and second driver positions in the team, and he's able to like pull strengths from that.
We'll discuss it again. We'll discuss this later on. I remember in the last race when Nico Rosberg was saying about how, Pierre Gasly wants to try and get that Red Bull seat back. And it's just like, I'll be honest. I think you'd be really stupid not to bring Paris back next year.
Mhm.
I think you would be like really galaxy braining it if you don't bring Paris back for maybe another 1 year or even a 2-year deal.
Yeah.
That's just me though.
Yeah, I don't think there's anyone that stands out to replace him enough that you shouldn't bring him back next year, because he's been putting in good results. He's been getting, he has a win, right?
Yeah, he won
He's got a
in.
win. He's got the pole.
Yeah. We'll go with Ferrari because they're ahead on the standings according to the app. I think Ferrari should get a B at least.
Yeah, I think they get a B. I think they've been a little bit on the unlucky side as well, but I don't think they've done anything like crazy to stand out as well. So I'd give them a B.
It's almost a little bit of a rebuilding year after last year, I think, is the thing with Ferrari.
Mm-hmm.
Patrick, any thoughts on Ferrari? Scuderia.
I was just gonna give them a B+ because they're doing
Okay.
a lot more consistent compared to where I thought they'd be going in from last year.
Yeah.
So that's the only reason I'd say that.
I'm slightly unlucky in having Charles in fantasy because I think I made him, what was it, my double or triple or whatever, and he didn't even survive the first turn in Budapest. So that's cool.
I remember you told me that the night before the race, and
Yeah.
I almost switched it to my double.
Yeah, I was because I was confident in that for like a couple of weeks. I'm like, yeah, you know what, Charles has been doing good. I'll give him the triple or whatever it was, and then it's like, no, you're not getting the triple, Ian. You're a dumbass.
Well, you gave him the Mega Driver, right?
Mega Driver, that's what it was. I gave him the Mega Driver, and it's just like, no, you're not supposed to do well in Formula One fantasy. What do you think this is, Ian?
Those negative points multiply, eh?
Oh, you don't say. You don't say.
They like really multiply when they're negative.
Yeah, it's really bad. McLaren. We'll talk about McLaren a little bit, as I think they're probably kind of with Ferrari in like the B+ area. Again, I would like a little bit more from Ricardo. That's just me personally.
I feel like the difference between them is like Ferrari's got like two drivers that are really like they're really good for each other, and I think they're ready to like have a better car that's like able to fight for first place. Whereas I feel like with McLaren, Lando's ready, but Daniel's not necessarily ready yet. And I think next year's car, if it's like an improvement, that they'll be able to compete as well, as long as Daniel can pull his weight a bit more, because Lando's doing a lot of work right now.
This might be a stupid question, but what pair of drivers would you rather have? Would you rather have, like, you can be any engine you want. You can have a Mercedes engine, but would you rather have the Sainz and Leclerc pairing or the Norris Ricardo pairing?
At this point in time, I'd go with the Ferrari pairing, just because Ricardo hasn't had as much time in that car. He hasn't figured out the braking yet. So,
Okay.
yeah.
And I feel like the same, that those two drivers are pretty consistent. Like I think they like push the car to where it like should be, considering like they kind of had to reset their car, I think 2 years ago. So yeah, I'd say that too.
I don't know. Maybe I would think I'd rather just have the McLaren drivers and just figure it out. Like I think I would rather trust those two drivers and just figure out whatever engine.
It's like a higher risk, higher reward thing.
Yeah, that's probably it.
Like in the long term, McLaren drivers are definitely the move, but in the short term, like season, I take the Ferrari.
If you're trying to win right now,
yeah. Because if Daniel could like pull off like some solid like finishes with Lando's already like pretty consistent finishes, they'd be a really good pair. But obviously right now it's not necessarily the case.
Let's throw it over
to be worried that maybe Ricardo doesn't even figure out the brakes in the McLaren car, because you gotta understand, like, he's built for that Red Bull car he was in, that late braking, that like I don't know how to describe it, but
he can never figure out
aggressive.
he can never figure out the brakes in a Renault, and
He was there 2 years, right?
yeah,
2 years.
2 years, and he still couldn't figure out the brakes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He
actually,
needs that like bitey, the bitiness of the Red Bull.
yeah, I like. It was weird. I like read this whole like in-depth thing about like this interview with Daniel and like his like PR person talking about like his like racing style and how he's like figuring out the car, and like he thinks he's still on the right track, which is obviously what everyone's gonna say. But apparently the McLaren car is like pretty aggressive, like we think the Red Bull is. But it's just a different type of aggressive that like he isn't able to like control and maximize yet. But he says he's got the average like amount of like strengths out of the car. He just wants to like maximize it, which he hasn't yet, like Lando.
It's a Mercedes aggression versus a Honda aggression, which usually the Mercedes aggression is like the Lewis Hamilton, cutting in on someone when you shouldn't be cutting in on someone. That's what Ricardo needs to figure out.
He's just got to take a few people out along the way.
Yeah, exactly. It's gonna be very aggressive.
Maybe we can put 55 G's next crash. I don't know.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Went there. Okay.
Let's throw it over to number 5 in the constructors, Alpine, who have 77 points. C plus B. I know Ocon just won, and they are top 5 in the constructors, but
I didn't see them really being there.
I agree with you, and I think they've been like, take out that one race that was arguably like they were handed the top 5 positions, right?
Yeah.
But like take out that race, I think they've been very average.
Yeah, they haven't done anything to stand out at all. The reason why they won that was probably because of Vettel and Alonso, right? Like holding them back and really making a team move. But they really haven't done anything or like made any like significant improvements.
Like they've been hovering around points for the most part. Like they've been hovering around like top 10 for the most part, which I mean is not an awful place to be in. It's just you kind of want a little bit more with Alonso.
And they haven't really moved up either. Like from where they've been, like their average, it's pretty much the same throughout the whole season.
And I think they've also been there because like Austin Martin has been worse than I thought they'd be this year. So Alpine really hasn't had any challengers in that position. Other than Gasly, I guess, because Tsunoda hasn't been anywhere near
it. Hey, he's working on it. Don't.
Tsunoda, I'm just happy to see Tsunoda finish and not be swearing at his
not be getting like track limit penalties for exceeding track limits and
or pit lane speed.
Pit lane speed or infractions.
And when's the last time he didn't crash in practice?
Yeah,
he's getting there. Don't worry, he's getting there.
He's the definition of a rookie.
C plus for me for Alpine. Is there anything different? Any other C, B minus? Yeah, C plus. Alpha Tauri, I'm gonna go with a B minus for Alpha Tauri, mostly because of Gasly. I think Gasly is probably one of the most underappreciated, underrated drivers right now, and he's just one of my favorites. That's why it's a B plus for me.
Yeah. I definitely think I think they're like a B minus, maybe even pushing a B, but it's purely Gasly. And I think everyone looks down on him because he's the one that got demoted from Red Bull. And so he's seen as like this, like now bad driver that, can't win anything and with like a really good car. But I think he's done really well this year. And I think that's why people are talking about him trying to move back to Red Bull. But, I don't know if that's going to happen.
I don't think it's going to happen.
No, I don't think so either. And not even the drivers, like the engineers, because they have a really good car this year, like better than I thought it would be at the start of the season.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with Alpha Tauri is that I think Gasly's a B minus driver. Like, I think that's just who he is. For the most part, he's a B minus driver. He can be a B plus, but for the most part, he's hovering like the B minus B area. Yuki is either like a B plus or a C plus. Like Yuki is like either on whatever extreme on any given weekend. He could be really good or he could be really poor. And that's why I came with the B- conclusion for AlphaTauri.
I was reading a couple articles yesterday about how if Yuki doesn't get like a Japanese backing paid seat, then he might actually lose his seat.
I wouldn't be surprised by that.
Because there's some good drivers in F2 right now.
I know.
I wouldn't be surprised. Just I feel like Yuki's maybe not necessarily the easiest like person to work with as well, and that like puts the teams off a little bit. And I don't know like what the relationship is with like him and like Gasly is, but like I'm sure it's probably not like the strongest as well. So there's nothing really like holding him there other than like his previous performances in like other races.
Him going back to F2 would not be the worst thing in the world.
No, not for him.
No, I don't think so.
With Honda leaving, he may not have as much pull in F1 anyway. So
yeah,
fair
maybe
point.
He needs a bit more time.
Aston Martin 7th. They're like a D for me, almost like a C-.
I'll go C-.
I'd give him a C just because I think Vettel does a pretty good job. But that's really it. I'm
giving them like there, like no one mentions them. They just
like the only reason why they do well is because the only reason why they do well is because those positions are really given to them. I think Vettel can put up a good fight, but that's just because he's like an experienced and like pretty good driver. I don't think it's because of their car. I think their car really sucks, actually.
Their car has got worse from last year. Like the car has definitely decreased in performance from last year. Yeah. Lance Stroll, I know, was like I was gonna say in Azerbaijan, like he was actually like looked like he was. I think he was gonna finish in the top 5 in Azerbaijan, wasn't he? And then the whole tire controversy there kind of fucked him. We know Stroll's a paid driver. Like we know Stroll's paid driver. He's a fine driver. He's okay. I don't know. I this team is not as good as AlphaTauri.
No.
They're probably not as good as Alpine. And
which is sad because that's where they thought they were going to be at the start of the year.
Yeah, they thought they'd be beating Alpine.
And
I think you were talking them up a lot in our we were talking at the start of the year.
Me?
Aston Martin, no? Or you just
I know I was saying because I saw their car in testing when they did testing in Bahrain, and they had either like a bunch of mistakes or like somebody was driving like shit. And it's just like, yeah, they're not. Maybe it'd be like before testing, I'm like, they could be something. Okay. But then testing came along. It's like, no, I'm out on this because I just don't see how the car can compete as well. Maybe Vettel can do something. Stroll is Stroll. I don't know if Stroll, I don't know if there's any more room to grow for Lance Stroll. Like, I don't know where the path forward is for Lance Stroll to be a top 5 driver in Formula One. I don't know if he's a top 10. I don't know if he's a top 10 driver in Formula One right now.
If he's top 10, he's like 9th or 10th.
Yeah, like he's just getting in. Like, I don't know. I don't see the pathway for him to get to top 5.
I think the only way he does that is like if he was to make like a big move, like to like a different team. But I don't think that's gonna happen.
I don't know what will happen
because obviously his dad is like a part owner, which owns the team. But yeah, like that would be the only way I see him making like a drastic improvement for him to like be at prime age and like be in a good car, like for everything to work out. That'd be the only way I see it. But I don't think realistically it'll happen.
D plus, C minus, C for Aston Martin. That's kind of where we're at.
I give him a C.
C.
Just because of Vettel, but
you're awfully generous.
Yeah, maybe C minus.
Williams. We'll discuss Williams racing here. A C.
I give him a C, maybe a C plus, but C plus mostly because of the driver, not really because of the car.
C plus because of Russell, like, and he's been qualifying really well for Williams.
Yeah, he's definitely done really well. Like, he's definitely improved a lot. I'll give him that. And I think Latifi's done okay, like in the race. He sucks in qualifying. He's terrible, but in the race, I think he does like all right, like with who he's competing with at least. in the back of the pack, but
he should be better than both the Haas drivers, which is
Yeah.
all that's really being asked of him. So
Mhm.
he's kind of just doing what he's asked.
yeah, considering the car he's got and things like that. But
So a C for you then, Justin. Patrick, you're gonna
I
round
was
it
just
out
gonna
with
go with a C plus because
C plus.
other than Russell, there's been really no surprises, nothing like too bad. It gets tough down there when you start getting into the pay drivers, but
yeah,
Alfa Romeo D plus.
yeah, pretty much. They're not really in the equation.
They're
They're just hoping for a point at this point.
I don't know if they actually know what they're doing. So they
don't.
they don't. So pretty much you have Kimi, who is very complacent,
Yeah,
who's kind of just there. I mean, he probably should just retire, but instead he's taking up a spot because he gets this, he gets paid still quite a bit. Giovinazzi. I know this is his episode, so we shouldn't be shit talking him, but like
I just don't think he really adds too much value to like the team. Like I think Kimi at least like brings like a lot of like attention to Alfa Romeo just because everyone likes the Iceman, but I don't really see like Giovinazzi, like he isn't like a crazy good driver and he's not really standing out and he's not bringing that much attention and publicity to the team as well.
I do want to say I two things. One, he's not somebody who strikes fear to you. Like you don't hear Antonio Giovinazzi's like, oh fuck, I gotta look
coming
out
up behind Vettel.
Yeah, it's just like you're not really intimidated by him.
Mhm.
And then the second thing, I think in the last Drive to Survive, I'm pretty sure Will Buxton said something along the lines of like, he's wicked fast, and that's all he gave him credit for. Like basically he's fast, and if he can figure out how to actually drive, he can be a good driver in Formula One.
I'm sure I think he can be like a pretty quick driver, but I think like when you're in the actual race, I think just with like every other factor, he isn't good. But I think like he can be quick, and that's probably why he's still got the seat. But yeah, I don't think he's that great in my opinion.
So D plus for Alfa Romeo.
I was gonna give them a C minus just because of those bottom three, they at least have like some race pace.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
I would give them higher, but just because they seem like they're going nowhere. They have no clue they're doing, just like you said, Ian.
There's no plan. I don't see where the pathway is. Kind of like what I mentioned with Stroll. I don't see where the pathway is to be a top 5 team.
Yeah, there isn't one. They didn't really bring in. They could have brought in a young guy to put beside Kimi, but they didn't. So I don't get why they even brought him in. So
Yuki to Alfa Romeo,
or even Mick.
Okay, maybe
that would actually be interesting.
I don't think
it's definitely an improvement over Haas.
Yeah. Well,
It's the time to do it with the new cars next year, honestly.
Yeah, I think Steiner's getting a little frustrated with like Mick's like negotiations and like future, just because it's so complicated as to like what Ferrari wants to do with him. So
well, no offense, Gunter, but like Schumacher kind of has more leverage over you.
Yeah,
whole team.
Like, he's not staying in the long term. You know what you're signing up for.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's like a 1 or 2 year contract.
2 max. Yeah.
Let's talk about then Haas quickly. Schumacher, I believe, will be a champion in this sport by the end of the decade at some point, probably with Ferrari. I'm not really concerned about how well he does with Haas this season, even though he's actually looked okay. Like he was in a top 10. Granted, there were so many crashes, so many retirements, but Schumacher was actually running top 10 in Hungary. I really like him.
Yeah, and
so do I. I love Schumacher.
Yeah,
he was also like defending. I forgot what race it was, but like there was one race where he was defending like decently well, with like a few people like coming up.
I feel like that was the last race in Hungary.
Yeah, I think it was.
That's when like Max got stuck behind him.
Yeah, and like Max had like he had like pretty much half his car gone.
I was gonna say Max had like a 65% like performing car.
Like one of his floorboards was
on the
gone.
right side was gone.
Yeah.
And he was like, Schumacher was trying to defend Max. trying to defend Lewis Schumacher. Yeah. So I like Schumacher.
And he didn't do it in a dangerous way. I
No.
think that's like what was important, because Mazepin would have just probably hit him, but but I feel like because he like defended, but he didn't like take it to like a point where he's causing crashes and it's like a dangerous move. I think that like showed his strengths really well.
Well, Mazepin would have done what you did in go-karting, where Patrick obviously spun on the corner and you just went right on the inside as I was trying to give Patrick space. You just took the space that I gave for Patrick and you cut in on me.
Where's the
You're giving me the space? Okay, no,
it's not. No, I was not giving you the space. I was
because I was significantly faster than you. It was pretty much a blue flag situation.
Wow. Okay. All right.
I mean, he's not wrong. Justin, didn't we like almost pass him twice in the last lap, man?
I did pass
him. I think I passed you twice when we had like you crashed and we had our caution or whatever. I think I passed you twice and you still lapped me back on the return. That's how slow I was going.
Okay, well, if I didn't pass you there, would I have passed you in the next turn?
Sure, probably. But the fact is that you just
or on the straight right after.
Yeah, probably. Like
Justin, that's just because you're light, though. The straights, you're like home.
I know, Justin. I'm not arguing that. Like, I'm not arguing that you wouldn't have passed me later on. It's just you did that right at that exact time when Patrick had spun, and I was trying to get around him. But
hey, no flags were out. That's all I'm saying.
I was looking at the tip of a hairpin. I could not move.
Any predictions for the rest of the season? I don't know if it's a hot take. If you think Red Bull, do you think Red Bull is going to win the championship? Do you think Max is going to win the drivers' championship? Do you guys have any predictions for the rest of the season?
I have Red Bull winning and then McLaren catching Ferrari or passing Ferrari, I guess.
Okay. Max wins the drivers?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't
hate that.
I think it's purely on luck now at this point. Like unless like they make like some drastic changes, like one of them makes like Mercedes did, like for the past few races where like they caught up so much. If one of the teams was to make that type of improvement again, which I don't really see happening, just because we're approaching the next season now, so they're not going to put too much money into this. I think it's just purely based on luck, like whatever plays out, whoever like DNFs the most, or things like that. But I agree as well. I think McLaren would catch Ferrari. I think they're maybe not necessarily like as consistent as a team, but I think Lando will do enough to pass Ferrari in the constructors.
I just think Lando has to stay consistent and Ricciardo has to get some type of consistency in there.
Ricciardo has to become like a regular top 10 driver. Like he can't be finishing 11th and 12th.
Yeah, he needs to be hitting P7, P8 for them.
Yes.
Yeah, like close to like the top 5, like pushing it.
I think Hamilton and Mercedes are gonna win. I'm content with Lewis or Max winning. Even Lando, if Lando won, that'd be cool. I think Sergio Perez will finish in the top 3. I think he'll get to 3rd. Bottas, I don't know if he'll be kind of overthinking how the rest of this, is this going to be my last few races with Mercedes type deal? And I just think Sergio Perez has a better car than McLaren. So I'm willing to make that bet that Perez finishes 3rd this season.
He's still figuring out that car too.
Yeah.
He's only going to get better.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like Lando just maximizes that McLaren car so much that he'll be able to pass. I think he'll do better than Perez still.
In the short term, do you think he has more upside than Perez though? Or
in the short term,
he has more to give this season?
In the short term, I think Perez has more to give.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Perez Lando, I think, is like operating about 95% capacity of what we think Lando can do. Perez, I think, is at about like 80, 85.
Yeah, he's
like I think he still has about 10% that Perez can give to like push him ahead.
Yeah,
I think by the end of the season, Perez will be a better like performing driver than Lando, but I
Yeah.
think Lando may still be ahead because he's already got that.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what I was trying to say was like I think Perez definitely could make improvements to be a better driver in the end, and probably going into next season he'll probably be a better driver just because of his car. But I think Lando he's just so consistent now, getting like pretty much P4. Like that's like his average, I think, for like the whole season.
He was the only driver I think to have points in every race, wasn't he? Up until
like
Hungary?
11. I think it was like yeah,
It was up until Hungary, wasn't it?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Hungary was the only race. Hungary's the only race he doesn't have points in this year, and he had a streak going.
That's 10 races in a row. Then I think.
Yeah. And I'm take it that we all believe it. We all would rather have Lando or Perez over Bottas, or at least we believe in those guys over Bottas right now.
Yeah,
I think it'd be a mistake if Mercedes kept Bottas for next year.
Okay, well, all right, let's get into that because that's my next thing I want to do. Okay. So right now there are, as we speak, as we do this on August 19th, 2021, 8 drivers who do not have contracts next year. Okay. We'll go through this quickly. What are the odds of each driver? Give a percentage of each driver returning to their team for next season. I'll go through the drivers here. Okay. Valtteri Bottas.
30%.
I give him a 45%.
I'll say 50%.
I think it's closer than people think. Obviously, I think the odds kind of really aren't in his favor right now. But I think it's behind the scenes, it's a lot closer because the dynamic just works so well for the whole team and Lewis. But yeah, I'd give him 45.
Okay.
I'd say 50 just because I think it's either George or Bottas. Like it's either Russell or Bottas.
Oh, yeah.
And part of me feels like if they were going to announce the Russell move, they would have done it.
I don't know.
That's kind of, yeah.
But they wouldn't want to ruin, like, because if Bottas knows he's not going to have a seat like next year in Mercedes, I feel like they're trying to just like push it as much as they can so he doesn't like become unmotivated to like do well and like cause more problems. Because now he's going to try and want to show off to like whatever other team that he, is trying to get signed to, and then that might create problems with Lewis, and then ruin the whole constructors.
Okay, fair enough.
Good point.
Sergio Perez, Red Bull.
65, I'd say.
That was exactly my number. I say 65.
I'll say 75%.
Okay.
I think the odds are pretty good that he stays. I think there's a lot of talk that he'll move, and like someone like young and upcoming is gonna, join Red Bull and steal his seat. But
Pierre Gasly.
Unless he becomes the reason where Red Bull can't win the drivers' championship, the constructors' championship, then I think he can stay.
Yeah, I think as long as he's like contributing and like knows that like he's realistically the second driver and like he's there just to like be that second driver so they can pull off more strategies. I think if he like continues to improve, I don't see a problem with him returning back at all.
I said this earlier. You'd be stupid if you're Christian Horner. You'd be stupid not to let Perez come back. I just think you'd be making a really big mistake. You're putting yourself in danger when you don't need to. Pierre Gasly and Yuki Tsunoda, both AlphaTauri drivers, do not have a contract for next season. Odds on them returning.
Here is a tricky one because
yeah.
If he doesn't get that Rebel seat back, I don't know if he wants to stay in the Rebel program.
I'm going to say 60%.
I'd agree with that.
Yeah, I think this year he'd probably sign one more like 1 year contract. So I'd say the same percent, but I think if after that, I think it would significantly decrease. I think he would begin looking elsewhere if he didn't see like a potential seat at Red Bull.
I do think it's kind of a bet on yourself because we're going to have the new cars come in next year. I think if he can put up these same sort of results in the new car next year, while, teams start having a bit more money, generating a bit more revenue, then he could say, listen, I did this well in the new car. Pay me.
Well,
give me a spot.
I also think that it's a possibility that Perez, might, I mean, I don't really know a situation, but like he might, he's been around for a while. Like he might not continue racing that much longer. And so he might just hold out until Perez is kind of done racing, because he's one of like the oldest drivers on the grid, I think, or like at least like
he's been racing for like the last 10 plus years.
Yeah, like he's been there a long time. So I mean, obviously he's doing really well now, but like he might choose to like end his career like a bit earlier, kind of like a Rosberg thing, maybe.
And Yuki 35% with Alpine,
like 35, 45 around.
Yeah, even like a 40-ish%. I don't really see it.
He'd have to put up some actual points and results in the second half if he wants to keep that seat.
Yeah, I think he's got to like impress, because Red Bull moves drivers in and out really fast. And I think just with like how involved the actual like head Red Bull team is like involved with AlphaTauri, I think they're just gonna kick him out if he can't do anything. Like happy.
Plus, if they keep Gasly, I can't imagine they'd keep Tsunoda as well.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I think one of them will go.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Gasly's the better bet to stay. I think we can all agree on that.
Long term, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Both the Alfa Romeo drivers that have contracts for the next season, or do not have contracts for next season. I need to figure out what I'm talking about. Alfa Romeo, no drivers under contract for 2022. Kimi stays.
It's such a tricky spot.
Because yeah,
I think Giovinazzi has to go.
I think
do you
I don't think he's actually gonna go.
What's the upside for him though?
Well, like Justin said, he's gonna get a spot with Ferrari.
Shut up! I don't know. I feel like Ferrari's just
if it goes to someone, wouldn't it go to Mick at some point instead of Giovinazzi?
Oh, I think. Totally. I think Mick would absolutely jump the line over Giovinazzi. It's
so where's Giovinazzi's future here?
Probably
I could see him ending up at Haas, to be honest.
No, he could probably race for like Alpine or somebody like that. Like that's where I think
Fernando retires.
Yeah, like I think that's where like
it's a good point.
He's not. Listen, he's same thing with Lance Stroll. He's not a top 10 driver in Formula One. I don't think he ever will be. So you're going to be driving for a middling team for the most part, and you're not going to be good. You're not going to be great, but you're just going to be fine, and you're going to be, probably finishing middle of the pack for most of your career. Like that's what I think he is, and I don't know if you're Alfa Romeo what your move is. So why not just at least bring Gio back? At least Gio's like the young guy.
Yeah, a little more potential.
A little bit more potential, because Kimi, no offense to Kimi, everybody likes him. He's really cool. At some point, you have to rip the Band-Aid off there and let him go.
Yeah,
he doesn't have the pace anymore.
Yeah, he's there. I think he's personally there just for like the publicity. Like he's got a huge fan base and brings a lot of fans and attention, like I said before. But that's really it. I don't think as an actual driver, if you were to take all those other, like if you were to take the fame away, I don't think he's actually that great of a driver anymore. He's really lost it.
I was confused when they brought him in, because it's not like they're sticking him next to a young guy like Tsunoda or something like that to like give him that experience.
Yeah.
It's almost like they brought him in for the name and the results, but they're really getting neither. So it doesn't really make any sense.
So I guess for myself, Gio, I think there's a 50% chance he comes back, and then Kimi, it's 40%. I think there's also just a good chance that they just run it back next year, and they're just like, weird year, 2021, 2020, weird years. We'll do it.
I was going to go 60-40.
Okay. For 60 for Gio?
For Gio 60, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like they'd want like a super young team that's like a bit more exciting. They'd probably do like a Gio Mick combo if it goes through. I could see that happening.
Because you got to also remember, does Kimi want to spend this time at his age learning that whole new car too?
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
could see him retiring at the end of this year.
Yeah.
that's a good point. I kind of agree with that. That makes sense. Williams drivers. Williams does not have any drivers under contract for 2022. Odds that George Russell comes back to Williams.
I give him. I feel like I should answer first. I
Sure, you answer first.
I give George like a 49% chance that he stays.
Okay.
I think like I really want to move, but it's like so on the fence just because of like what I said about Valtteri before as well. Like it just works so well with Mercedes, and that's really what he wants. He really doesn't want any team. He's just making threats that like he'll go somewhere else. Realistically, he doesn't want to go anywhere else. He's like the image of Mercedes. So that's what I think.
I was just giving George a 30 because it's the same as I gave Bottas, because the only place he's going is if he leaves. So
yeah.
I'll say 50% because I said 50% that Bottas stays with Mercedes. Personally, I think it'd be really cool. I think that'd be probably the biggest storyline next year if Russell goes to Mercedes, is having
huge
the arguably the greatest driver of all time against someone who people really like and seem to think could be another talented driver. Nicholas Latifi back next year. I'm kind of leaning towards like him returning. Like I think I'm close to like the 45%, 50%.
I think if George was to leave, then they'd keep one driver that's already been on the team and bring on a second driver from I don't know where else, maybe Valtteri, or maybe it's someone from Formula 2. But yeah, I think the odds are actually pretty good, dependent on if George stays.
Okay.
Because if George leaves and they try to bring in another, I don't think they can afford to bring in two younger guys because I think they rely on the paid driver.
Yeah,
that's why I have Latifi going back, is because they're going to keep the pay driver next, even though they got new investors and they have new funding. They're probably just going to keep the pay driver for at least another year as we get out of the pandemic.
Yeah,
I agree with that one.
Is there any other driver that's not in Formula One right now that you'd like to see back? I think I mentioned like Nico Hulkenberg. I can't do the accent, the Ricardo. I can't do the Hulkenberg accent, but like Hulkenberg, maybe Alex Albon, maybe he goes to AlphaTauri.
Website's been hyping him up lately.
Yeah, he's been getting some decent attention online.
I thought he would go to AlphaTauri this year with Gasly. Like I figured like the ex Red Bull drivers would just form the AlphaTauri team.
I think that'd be a pretty good strategy for the team, but I feel like just knowing Red Bull, they'd want someone that like is super exciting, that like, you know, they have like that like already pre-existing like excitement of Gasly as to like what his future is. And so I feel like they'd want someone really up and coming to develop and everyone's really surprised with, like from F2 or wherever else.
Yeah, I was gonna say I feel like if you're adding Albon to AlphaTauri, that's more of like a constructor's play. Like that's not necessarily a development team. That's more of like, oh, we think we can compete with like.
Yeah, we want to solidify our P4, P5.
And maybe even compete with like McLaren or Ferrari or somebody. And it's just like that doesn't quite make sense for what AlphaTauri is, but sure, you could do that.
Yeah, I think like that's what I was trying to get. Like as a team move, definitely. I think that's a great idea, but I don't think that's their purpose. That's not what they're trying to do.
Any other drivers that you guys would like to see possibly in Formula One next year?
That's really it.
Other than like some of the F2 guys, that's pretty much it.
I was going to say some of the Formula E guys. I was watching some of the Formula E racing over the past week. Nick DeVries, who just won for the Mercedes, I believe, F1 or Formula E team. A couple of the Formula E guys have been really cool.
He's actually in the talks of taking that Mercedes C2. I don't think the odds are very good.
No, God, no. He might be in Williams next. Like I wrote an article about that for speakerpiece.ca about some Formula E drivers who could go and like race for Williams next year that make like Pascal Verlaine or Nick DeVries, bunch of guys that can make sense.
Yeah.
All right. We got some mailbag questions. So people want your opinions on some questions.
Related to Formula One?
Related to Formula One. All of them are related to Formula One.
Oh.
Nobody's asking for your opinions on shoes on this podcast, Justin. So, or provincial capitals. So Noah from the friend of the pod asked, is the Monaco GP track boring?
I find it boring now.
I think the race is boring, but Monaco's more about the weekend. It's like the experience.
Yeah.
It's not about the race.
Yeah, I think the actual race track is like boring. Like nothing really happens. Like you're just bored the whole time. But like what Patrick was saying, just like the whole experience of being in Monaco and like the luxuries and everything, I think that's what like brings the excitement.
I think it's kind of boring. The track is kind of boring. The layout's kind of boring. Also, like they've been racing on,
cool.
Huh?
The tunnel's cool.
Sure, the tunnel's cool, but the actual like how the track, like it's one of the shortest tracks in Formula One. Like it's a tight, condensed track.
I think it'll be fun with the newer cars next year, though.
That's the other thing I was going to mention.
Downforce, it could be crazy.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing is that they've been racing on Monaco for 50 years now. And like the cars have gotten extraordinarily bigger since they started racing, which they were not, when they started racing on the streets of Monaco, they weren't anticipating the cars to get as big as they are now, which hasn't helped.
That's why I'm more so excited for next year. I know it's not like much smaller, but compared to this year.
Yeah. Sure. Totally. Jevin Lefebvre, friend of the pod he does the left side heavy pod. He got me set up with this mic stand, by the way, new mic setup. So shout out Jevin for making me like somewhat professional here. He asked, could my 05 automatic Accord compete in an F1 race?
You could pass Mazepin, maybe.
I was gonna say you could probably pass Haas. You could probably compete with Haas, and that's about it.
Yeah, it probably could.
Just wait for Mazepin to crash. You're
slap a couple turbos in there, maybe a big wing on the back,
a DRS wing.
Yeah, and some really wide tires. I think we'll be good to go.
All right. Finally, last question from Bradley Fraser. Who do you think was at fault in the Lewis and Verstappen crash on lap 1 at the British Grand Prix?
Ian, did you plant this question?
I did not know. Bradley asked it. Because so pretty much I've done a YouTube video on this. I've talked about this on some of my other pods, but I get Patrick. Patrick, what are your thoughts? Who's at fault?
I think it's Lewis's fault.
Okay. All right.
I know you think it's the opposite. So
no, I think it's
50-50.
It's 50-50. I think it's a racing incident. Justin, the deciding vote here.
Come on, Justin.
I lean towards Lewis. Like it's Lewis's fault. Just because I think I think it is a racing incident and like the penalty shouldn't be like super harsh on him, but I just think he got a bit aggressive and he was getting frustrated over like the last few turns that like he really couldn't pass him. And I think he tried to make a move that Max probably wasn't expecting. And I think that's why he crashed. So I lean towards Lewis, but it's really a racing incident still, but I lean towards Lewis.
Again, I said it's a racing incident because Max gave him space. Lewis took space. Lewis did what probably any of us would do.
Yeah. They were going back and forth the whole time. Like,
the whole lap.
They were bound to touch no matter like at the rate that they were going.
I also think though, if it was like reversed and Max did that to Lewis, I think we'd be having like a very different discussion.
Like in what?
I think Lewis would have been very vocal about it.
Oh, probably, probably, but I mean, Red Bull has been pretty vocal about it too.
That's true.
I feel like Lewis has, like when Lewis says something and he gets super serious about it, it's intense.
When Lewis says something, people listen.
Yeah, it's like
there's a reason 9 out of 10 posts on F1 Instagram.
I was gonna say it's like a LeBron James thing. It's like if anybody else was saying something, they probably wouldn't chat about it because it's Lewis Hamilton.
Yeah, exactly.
Formula One actually has to do something. Actually has to take this seriously.
Yeah, that's all I meant by it. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, that's the podcast. That's all I got, for content for today. Boys, is there anything you want to plug, you want to share, anybody you want to shout out, anything you want to mention before we go here? I'll give you a few seconds to do so if you got that person, group. Justin, aren't you doing business? You got like some business project or promotion you got to promote?
I got nothing, Ian.
Okay.
Semester now.
Yeah, I really got nothing for it. I'm gonna be honest. I'm just glad to be on here and had a good time.
Well, this is an underwhelming end to the episode here. Thank you both for coming on. It's always great seeing you guys. Maybe not so much when we're go-karting, but that's more of a me thing and me struggling. But that's not your fault.
Yeah, Ian didn't do too well last time.
No.
Terrible, actually.
Really bad.
Print the blue flag just for Ian.
Nikita
McNaughton.
Ian, do you know what your name in my phone is?
Is it Nikita McNaughton?
No,
Ian
Mazepin.
Ian Mazepin? Nice.
Yes.
That's cool. Yeah, that's the podcast. Thank you very much for listening. I don't have a lot I need to plug on here. I've been doing some writing. Go check out some of my articles.
I've been reading some of it.
Oh, aren't you kind? We got episode 100 of the SYP podcast coming up here pretty soon.
Any special guests?
We're hoping. Do you know Matthew Mosquito?
No.
He went to school at UBCO.
No.
Anyways, he was supposed to be our special guest, so clearly it's not that special to Justin, so that's cool. That episode 100 coming up soon. Basically, I'm finalizing my fall schedule. I'm going to announce our SYP events for the fall. Good news, boys. I might be going to Alberta.
Wow. Look at you.
Yeah. Getting COVID in Alberta challenge. Should be great. Be sure, again, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Like the video if you're watching on YouTube. Check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts or your music.
Comment down below too.
What'd you say?
Comment down below on the YouTube video as well.
Comment on YouTube. Comment on the YouTube.
Yeah.
Justin, where do you get your music?
Apple Music.
Apple Music. Nice. YouTube Music.
Oh.
I actually pay premium YouTube.
That's a
wow. So you got like that in-picture thing where you could be on like two different apps and have YouTube playing.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I know.
Wow.
What a
offline YouTube videos.
Yeah. What a stunning
wow.
What a stunning revelation this is.
That's
I didn't
crazy.
even know that was a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, you actually click subscribe when it pops up.
Yep. I actually did. I'm actually paying real money to YouTube so that I can have that.
How much is YouTube Music?
I think it's like $8 or $9 a month. I don't have Spotify.
Oh, okay.
Basically that's my music. I don't pay for Netflix. I just bum off everybody else's Netflix. So pretty much it's just YouTube Music.
There you go. That's pretty cool. I think you're the first person I know that has YouTube Music.
Yep. Yeah. There you go.
One.
Premium YouTube. Try it out today. That should be one of the ads in this podcast. Thank you very much for listening. This has been great. We'll chat again soon. Peace out.
Bye.